Hello everybody and welcome back to my garden. This is Julia gardening here in Zone 7A, Utah, and I have a really exciting day today for me. I am planting all of my pepper plants in my raised bed vegetable garden right here next to me. I have a whole bunch of beautiful things here behind me, lots of flowers, lots of different vegetables, some strawberries, but today we're focusing on getting the peppers in the ground. But before I do that, before I actually plant them, I wanted to go over a few basic tips and guidelines when we're planting peppers. This video is going to be geared towards people who have maybe never grown a garden before, maybe you've never grown peppers before and you're just looking for a start. So we're not going to get into a whole bunch of details about pest control and diseases and things like that, just the basics of planting peppers. So to start out, you really have a couple options of getting your actual pepper starts. You can either go to the garden center and buy starts, or you can start starts yourself from seed indoors, which is what I normally do. But this year I actually had a dear friend who grew, I don't know if you'll be able to see these, but she grew all of these beautiful pepper starts for me, and she had a lot of extra, and so she gave me her extras, and she gave me 11 pepper starts, which is so exciting. They have little buds on them and blooms. They look beautiful. But there are some pros and cons to each. If you go down to the garden center, it's really easy. You didn't have to start, weeks and weeks ahead. You can just go and pick out a healthy plant and get it, pop it right in the ground, which is really convenient for a lot of people. And so that option can be really good. If you like to start things from seed, and if you have a seed starting setup, then I recommend starting from seed because you can choose a lot of different varieties, maybe that they don't carry at the garden center, and you just have a lot of options when it comes to picking out which pepper starts you want for your own garden. If you do decide to start your own pepper plants from seed indoors, you want to do that about 8 to 10 weeks before your average last frost date so that you can get your peppers big and hardy enough to get out into the garden. You want to make sure that you are planting at the correct time, which is after your average last frost date. Now, this is a guideline, and I would recommend, because I've been here this year, planting things out too early, and then it's kind of a hassle to cover. You might lose some things. They're gonna get nipped by cold. So you want to wait until it's the appropriate time, which is after your average last frost date. For here in my zone, I think our average last frost date is April 26th, but most people wait a couple extra weeks until after Mother's Day so that they know that they're really safe. The cold's not gonna come in and, potentially take out their plants. So making sure that you plant your peppers at the right time is really key. The next thing you want to think about is location. Where are you going to be putting your peppers for the entire season? You want to think about sun. Peppers really need full day sun to thrive and do what they're supposed to do and give you those big, yummy, beautiful fruit, towards the end of the season. So I am in a very sunny spot. If you cannot tell, the sun is like beating down on me, and I have my vegetable garden just over here to the right of me. But really you want a minimum of 6, preferably at least 8 hours of full sun every single day. The other thing about location is making sure that the soil that you plant your peppers in is really good, rich in organic matter, well-draining soil. That's going to be very important to the health of your plant. If you're planting into like clay of soil, which is what my native soil is, those roots are not going to be able to get through the soil very well, and it's going to bind a lot of things up. So I prefer to garden in like a raised bed or container type of situation. I think that the plants do much better when they do that. Now, that being said, last year I did plant a bunch of tomatoes in ground. I just made sure I amended the soil with lots of organic compost, and they did amazing. So whatever you need to do to figure out the best spot for your situation, go for it. Sometimes I think we're just a little bit too harsh on trying to make sure we have the perfect conditions for growing vegetables, which there is no such thing. We're always going to run into, some sort of issues. But if you have ground that is open that you can amend with a lot of good compost and fertilizer and things like that, go for it. I just have found that my preferable way is to garden in my raised beds. Waiting for the helicopter to go by. I can't see it, but I can hear it. Okay, so that brings me to fertilizer. You always want to make sure that you are fertilizing your vegetables. It helps so much, and it's gonna really help produce those big fruit that we're after. So I always put in a starter fertilizer. Usually I use Espoma Biotone starter fertilizer, which is great. I don't have that on hand today, and I went to 2 different local garden centers this morning and they're out. I'm hoping it's not like a shortage or anything like that. But I do have Plantone, which will work just as great. You just want to make sure that you are putting some sort of starter fertilizer in there to really get your plants up and going. And then throughout the growing season, I usually do maybe about once a month, I'll go in with an all-purpose garden fertilizer just to help keep feeding those plants. And I will have a video going over that when I am doing that throughout the season, where I'm going through and giving all of my vegetables an extra dose of fertilizer about once a month. Sometimes it's a little bit longer than that, but it really does make a difference. So if you can, fertilize your peppers and they will thank you for it. Now, when it comes to actually planting our peppers, which I will show you here in just a minute, it's really easy. We're gonna put them about 3 to 4 inches deep, just as long as that root ball is really nice and tucked in. I usually like to give the hole a little bit of water, the root ball a little bit of water, and then water them in. And then we wanna space them about 12 to 18 inches apart. I tend to plant everything a little bit closer than what the recommendation is, just because I like a really full, abundant garden, and I don't necessarily like to see empty space where I'm like, oh, I could have been using that space all along this whole season. You don't want them too crowded, because then things like powdery mildew and diseases and pests can really kind of take over. So give them the space that they need, but just a personal preference, I tend to plant all my things a little bit closer. And then watering is key. I have found this out over the past several years of growing peppers. Water is absolutely key, and they do so much better if they're getting consistent moisture. I have all of my raised beds hooked up on a drip system where they are getting consistent moisture, and I'm not allowing them to dry out, and I feel like that has made the biggest difference. So whatever you need to do in my zone and in my climate, we are in high desert Utah. It's hot, the sun is pretty intense, and it's dry. We do not get a lot of moisture. So a drip system has been an absolute game changer. And I'll show you the drip system that I have here in my raised beds. But that would be my #1 key tip, is just to make sure that they are consistently being watered. I also am going to be staking my peppers today. Last year I did not stake, and it was okay. I didn't lose any, but they were definitely toppling over, and that means that the fruit was on the ground. I had potential for the stems to break or the branches to break. So I should have been staking. I recommend staking. So I will show you the method that I'm going to be using today to stake the peppers up, just to make sure that they're up off of the ground, and it really gives those fruit a chance to grow big, and we don't want fruit laying on the ground. Again, that can lead to problems with diseases and pests and all those kinds of things. So staking is what I'm going to be doing today and what I recommend. And lastly, as the season progresses, keep the area around where you have planted your peppers weeded. Make sure that they're not fighting for competition for light or water or anything like that. So keep everything weeded and nice and tidy around your peppers, and then just keep harvesting and harvesting and harvesting. The more that you harvest your fruit, and this is general for all of our vegetables and all of our fruit out in the garden, the more that you harvest, the more flowers that they produce, which produces more fruit. So harvest your pepper plants as soon as they're at their maturity size, and that's the fun part. Then you get to see all of the fruits of your labor. Okay, let's go ahead and get my 11 peppers in the ground. Okay, and here is my pepper bed all ready to go, except for the drip. I totally forgot that I haven't ran drip to this bed yet. I thought we had, but my husband has just barely finished these extra garden boxes this year, and I just barely got them, filled up with all of the dirt and things. So we still need to run the drip, but let me show you what it looks like. If I come on down to this bed, or any of these beds, this is what the drip is going to look like. We have some black solid tubing here that we've run across, and then I put 2 strands of drip tape just all along the length of the bed, knowing that I can add another one if I need to, but I'm thinking these 2 drip tapes are gonna do just fine for all of these beds. In this bed, we have golden beets coming up, and I have some Detroit dark red beets, and I think there's probably room for some other things. I tried to seed some bronze mignonette lettuce, but I don't see any of it coming up, which is okay. So we might even have some extra room here in these beds, but this is exactly what the drip will look like once we get it in the pepper bed. Okay, so I am up here at my raised vegetable garden beds, and this is going to be the pepper bed for this season. I think it's going to work out great. I have 11 Yes, 11 pepper plants that I got from my sweet friend that are ready to get into the ground. So what I'm gonna do first is I'm going to remove these plants, just set them to the side, and we're going to add this plant tone. Now, normally I would use Espoma Biotone starter fertilizer, but I don't have that today. And like I said, I couldn't find it this morning, but I know that this plant tone will work just as great and will be absolutely fine. It's a very gentle organic fertilizer. So I feel really good about just kind of sprinkling and not really measuring as much, but just sprinkling this fertilizer into the top couple inches of the soil, and I'll work it in, and then we can get these pepper plants in the ground. Okay, now that I have my peppers placed basically where I want them, I'm just gonna go ahead and dig a hole, make sure that the entire root ball is underground, tucked in, that there are no air pockets. So we'll get these in the ground and then we'll water them in really, really well. Oh my goodness, we have some cloud cover, which feels so nice. But anyways, all I have today are these green garden stakes. I think they look like they're probably about 2.5 feet long. And I'm just going to drive this next to each pepper. So let's go ahead and do this one right here. I'm gonna put it behind the pepper, fairly close, in the ground like that. And then I also have this foam tie that I got from the garden center. Now all we're gonna do is clip off a little piece of this, enough so that we can secure it to our stake. Now for this, you wanna make sure that you don't do it too tight, because I want to make sure that this stem has plenty of space to grow taller and to grow thicker and stronger. So I'm not gonna do it very tight, just enough so that it won't fall over. So here's a close-up. Here's my stake. I think it's going to be plenty tall enough for a pepper. And then I just loosely tied this, but there's wire in under this foam. So it's going to be strong enough that this pepper plant is not going to topple over in some wind or anything like that. Oh my heavens, I just spent about 10 years trying to get all of the tags off of these stakes, but I did it. So let's get all of these pepper plants staked. And there it is, our pepper bed all ready to go for the whole season. The staking method is in place. Now let me tell you about staking. It is always going to be easier for you and for your plants if you get the staking method put into place as soon as you plant. I have had so many years where I kind of hold off, and then mid-season I'm trying to stake things, and it is such a hassle. So if you get on top of your staking method, whatever you choose to do, and have it in place right from the get-go, you will thank yourself. But doesn't this look beautiful? I mean, like, there's something about tidy rows that really just make my heart sing. So that is going to do it for me today, guys. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope this has inspired you, if you are a new gardener, to go out and try some peppers, get some things in your garden. You know, peppers are such a staple in my household. We use them for salsa and spaghetti sauce and pizza sauce and freezing and all of those really, really good things. And if you are a seasoned gardener, I hope this served as a good reminder of all of those good things that we need to do to make sure we have our most successful pepper harvest that we possibly can. So anyways, thank you all so much for watching. I have some more gardening and some more staking to do, and then I got to get on the inside of my house and give that attention. If you're anything like me, once it's gardening season outside, the inside of the home tends to be a little bit neglected. So anyways, but I hope you all really enjoyed this, and we will see you in the next video. Thanks. Bye.